The soft light of the Christmas tree cast long, cozy shadows across Alex's stunning Manhattan penthouse. The view outside was a glittering blanket of city lights, but the atmosphere inside was intimate and still. It was Christmas Eve, and I was exactly where I always was, on Alex's enormous sectional sofa, nursing a cup of spiced eggnog, feeling that deep, familiar contentment that comes from true, uncomplicated friendship. My name is Ethan. For 12 years, Alex has been my constant. She is a powerhouse, a self-made tech millionaire whose brilliance is only rivaled by her generosity. We met in college, two broke students sharing ramen, and we navigated the brutal climb of the business world side by side. Her success never changed her. She remained the same fiercely loyal, slightly chaotic woman I adored. The complexity of our relationship was simple. It was platonic. She dated, I dated, and we always retreated to the safe harbor of our friendship. I loved her, of course, but it was the deep, brotherly love of a confidant, a partner in crime, and a shared history that was too valuable to risk with romantic complications. She was my anchor, and I was hers. Tonight, the silence felt different. We had finished our annual tradition of wrapping gifts for her foundation, a mountain of toys for local children, and the festive decor was perfect. Alex was curled up in a huge armchair across from me, the firelight catching the gold thread in her cashmere sweater. She wasn't looking at her phone or talking business. She was simply watching the fire, her expression thoughtful and unusually hesitant. I was reflecting on our long-standing, seemingly platonic friendship, feeling a profound gratitude for the stability she represented. I thought I knew her inside and out, her fears, her ambitions, her bizarre penchant for organizing her extensive collection of sneakers by color palette. She finally broke the silence, not with a casual remark, but with a sudden, deep intake of breath. "Ethan," she began, her voice unusually low, "I need to make a confession, something I've been holding on to for a long time. It's about a moment that shifted everything for me." My internal monologue raced. Oh no, is she moving to London? Is she suddenly getting married? Did she lose $1 billion in a rogue investment? The anticipation was immediate. This was Alex, and her confessions were never mundane. "It was 6 years ago," she continued, turning slightly, her gaze locking onto mine. "It was the night I closed the Series C funding for Novatech, the night I technically became a millionaire. I remembered that night perfectly. We had celebrated in her tiny, cramped apartment, drinking champagne straight from the bottle and ordering 3 kinds of terrible takeout. I had felt so incredibly proud of her. The celebration was chaos," she recalled, a slight pained smile touching her lips. The phone calls, the congratulations, the feeling that my life was fundamentally changing. Everyone kept telling me how smart I was, how ruthless, how deserving. But I felt completely adrift. I was terrified of being alone in that success. She paused, running her fingers along the rim of her mug. "Everyone eventually left, except for you. You stayed behind not to talk about the valuation or the strategy, but to help me clean up the pizza boxes and the spilled champagne. And I was exhausted, but you insisted on finding the 2 tiny silver candlesticks I'd inherited from my grandmother and lighting them. You said, 'We're millionaires now, Alex. We need class.'" I chuckled, remembering the ridiculousness of the moment. "They were terribly tacky candlesticks, Alex." "They were," she agreed, but her eyes were serious. "You sat there with me by the light of those 2 tacky little flames, and you talked about the future. You talked about how we'd always have each other's backs no matter how big the world got. You talked about friendship, Ethan. Real friendship." She took another shaky breath, the confession reaching its tipping point. "And that night, I looked at you sitting on the floor, surrounded by financial projections and dirty paper plates, and I realized you were the only real thing I had acquired. Everything else was currency, but you were home. I realized that night that I was deeply, irrevocably in love with you. My blood ran cold. The comfortable floor of our friendship dropped out from under me. 12 years of careful, platonic stability vaporized in a single, quiet Christmas Eve confession. Alex, I stammered, scrambling to find the right response, the logical response to this monumental, unforeseen romantic development. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why wait 6 years? A look of deep sorrow crossed her face. Because I was terrified, Ethan. You were my anchor, my only constant. To risk that for a chance at a relationship which might fail was a risk I couldn't take. I chose the certainty of your friendship over the possibility of a brief, beautiful romance that could leave me utterly alone. It was selfish, but it was my truth. She stood up then, walking to the window, her back to me. But watching you navigate the last year, seeing you struggle after your last relationship ended, I realized I couldn't let another Christmas go by where you didn't know you had a safe option, a guaranteed option. I had to let go of the secret. She turned back to me, the question hanging heavy in the air, framed by the twinkling lights. This wasn't the traditional, I love you. This was the blind side, the curveball that turned our entire friendship upside down. So here is my confession, Ethan. I love you. And this is the question I've held on to for 6 years. If I were to ask you to marry me, not for money, not for status, but for the guaranteed security of the greatest friendship we've ever known, would you say yes? The silence that followed was absolute. She wasn't asking for passion, she was asking for partnership, for the ultimate commitment built on the foundation of gold we had already forged. The emotional weight of the moment was crushing. It wasn't about the millionaire or the romance. It was about the raw emotions involved in choosing between the safety of a lifelong friend and the terrifying, beautiful unknown of true romantic love. I looked at the incredible woman who valued my friendship above her own desires and realized the depth of the sacrifice she had made by staying silent. The raw emotions of the moment resonated, forcing me to confront the beautiful, complex reality that my best friend was offering me not just a life, but a guaranteed haven.